There comes a moment in every person's life when the world grows quiet. Not because nothing is happening, but because you can no longer avoid the truth that something inside you is asking to change. You feel it like a pressure beneath the surface, a whisper in the back of your mind, a tension you cannot explain. It's the sense that the life you're living no longer fits the person you're becoming, and in that moment you stand at a crossroads. Remain who you've always been, or begin the difficult, courageous, and transformative work of rebuilding yourself. Rebuilding yourself is not about chasing a new identity or pretending to be stronger than you are. It's about confronting the parts of you that you've ignored, buried, or outgrown. It's about recognizing that the habits, beliefs, and patterns that once protected you are now the very things holding you back. The world will tell you to improve your life from the outside, change your routine, change your environment, change your goals. But real transformation begins inside, in the quiet places of your mind where your deepest truths live. Today, you are not here to listen to a speech. You are here because part of you is ready, Tories confronting. Your inner shadow is the beginning of every profound transformation, because the parts of yourself that you avoid, deny, or judge are the very parts that hold the power to rebuild you from the inside out. The shadow is not darkness in the dramatic sense. It is simply everything about you that has been pushed away into the unconscious because it was uncomfortable, unacceptable, or overwhelming at the time. Yet those hidden fragments never disappear. They continue shaping your decisions, reactions, relationships, fears, and desires silently from below the surface. When you begin to face these buried elements, you gain access to energy, insight, and strength that you never realized belonged to you. Understanding who you truly are is the foundation of rebuilding yourself, because without self-honesty, every attempt at growth becomes a performance rather than a transformation. Most people spend years living as a reflection of expectations, family patterns, social pressures, and past experiences, without ever questioning whether the identity they carry is actually theirs. Rebuilding yourself requires a return to the deepest layers of your being, a stripping away of borrowed beliefs, and a courageous examination of what drives you beneath the surface. It is not an intellectual exercise, but an emotional and psychological excavation of everything that shapes your choices, reactions, desires, and fears. You cannot create a new version of yourself if you do not understand the old one, because what you fail to understand continues to operate in silence. Self-honesty is difficult because the ego is built to protect you. It constructs convenient stories, rationalizations, and illusions to keep you comfortable, even if that comfort is limiting. You tell yourself you are not capable because trying and failing feels dangerous. You tell yourself you do not want something because wanting it opens the door to disappointment. You pretend old wounds do not affect you because admitting otherwise feels like weakness. You say you are fine because facing the truth requires effort, courage, and vulnerability. But rebuilding yourself demands that you strip away these illusions and confront the raw reality of your inner world. You must be willing to see where you lie to yourself, where you shrink, where you hide, and where you betray your own potential in the name of safety. Understanding yourself begins by observing your patterns. Patterns reveal truth, the way you react to certain situations, the types of people you are drawn to, the arguments you repeat, the habits you cannot break, and the emotions that surface instantly without explanation are all windows into your deeper identity. Most people look at patterns as coincidences or external problems, but they are internal mirrors. If you repeatedly end up in situations where you feel undervalued, perhaps a part of you believes you do not deserve more. If you avoid opportunities that could elevate your life, maybe you fear success more than failure. If you sabotage relationships, maybe trust feels unfamiliar. These insights are not judgments. They are clues. When you understand the emotional logic behind your behaviors, you gain the power to change them. Another layer of understanding who you are lies in examining the beliefs you absorbed from childhood. Many of your core beliefs were formed when you were too young to question them. Perhaps you learned that love must be earned, that showing emotion is dangerous, that achievement equals worth, or that your needs do not matter. Those early lessons become the blueprint for your behavior in adulthood, unless you consciously rewrite them. Rebuilding yourself means revisiting those internal contracts and deciding which ones still serve you. You cannot build a strong structure on a foundation that was created in fear or misunderstanding. You must understand where your beliefs came from, how they shaped you, and whether they reflect your true nature or someone else's influence. To know yourself, you must also pay attention to what energizes you and what drains you. Many people force themselves into roles and environments that suffocate their natural impulses. They hide their creativity because it was once judged. They suppress their leadership because someone told them they were too much. They deny their dreams because someone dismissed them. Understanding yourself means recognizing the instincts, passions, and talents that feel alive within you, even if they have been ignored for years. The things you are naturally drawn to are not accidents. They are signposts pointing you toward your authentic self. When you stop resisting them, you begin to align with the life you were meant to build, not the one you were pressured into accepting. Another essential part of knowing yourself is acknowledging your emotional triggers. Triggers are not weaknesses, they are data. They reveal unresolved wounds and unspoken truths. When someone dismisses you and anger rises, it tells you that you have a history of not being heard. When you feel threatened by uncertainty, it reveals how much of your identity is built on control. When criticism crushes you, it may show that your self-worth is fragile. Understanding your triggers allows you to respond consciously instead of reacting blindly. It gives you the ability to rebuild yourself, not from emotional reactivity, but from emotional awareness. Knowing yourself also involves examining your desires without filtering them through fear or social expectation. Many people deny their deepest desires because they feel unrealistic, inconvenient, or intimidating. But your desires are signals from your inner world, expressions of the life force within you. They reveal what kind of existence would make you feel fulfilled and alive. Ignoring them creates internal conflict because you are living against your own nature. When you understand what you genuinely want, not what you think you should want, you begin to design a life that matches your essence rather than your circumstances. To rebuild yourself, you must also face your contradictions. Human beings are not one thing. You can be strong and fragile, confident and insecure, disciplined and chaotic. Most people try to choose one side and suppress the other, but true self-understanding comes from acknowledging all parts of you without judgment. When you understand your contradictions, you stop fighting yourself. You stop trying to be perfect and start learning how to integrate your complexity. This internal harmony becomes the foundation for external transformation. Understanding yourself requires solitude. You cannot hear your own inner voice when the world's noise drowns it out. Time alone allows your mind to reveal thoughts and feelings that would otherwise remain buried. It helps you see what matters, what disturbs you, what inspires you, and what no longer belongs in your life. Solitude becomes the mirror in which you finally see yourself clearly. When you know who you truly are, your patterns, wounds, strengths, desires, fears, values, and contradictions, you become capable of rebuilding yourself intentionally rather than accidentally. You stop living on autopilot. You stop repeating inherited patterns. You stop betraying yourself. You begin shaping your identity from truth rather than illusion. Most people try to rebuild themselves by adding more things on top. New habits, new routines, new affirmations, new goals. But real transformation does not begin by adding. It begins by uncovering what has been silently driving you all along. When you confront the shadow, you begin to understand why certain patterns repeat in your life, why you sabotage yourself at the edge of success, why certain emotions overwhelm you, and why you attract similar situations over and over. You start to see that life is not simply happening to you. Your inner world is constantly shaping the outer one. Every reaction is a messenger. Every fear is a doorway. Every insecurity is a map pointing to a part of yourself waiting to be reclaimed. Facing your shadow means observing yourself without judgment, and that is one of the most difficult things a person can do. When anger rises, instead of suppressing it or apologizing for it, you look at it closely and ask what boundary or wound it is protecting. When jealousy appears, instead of pretending it doesn't exist, you examine the unmet desire beneath it. When fear grips you, you don't run. You ask why it chose that moment to speak. By doing this, you are not feeding negativity. You are finally listening to the messages that your deeper mind has been trying to communicate for years. The emotions and impulses you judge the most often carry the greatest truths about who you are and what you need to heal. People spend years fighting their shadows, trying to present only their polished, controlled, perfect sides to the world. But denying the shadow gives it more power. What you refuse to face controls you. What you bring into awareness loses its grip. Rebuilding yourself requires the courage to see the parts of you that you once felt ashamed of, the memories you have tried to forget, the traits you dislike, and the emotions you suppress. This is not about indulging in negativity. It is about understanding your full self, so you can stop fighting against your own mind. Wholeness comes not from cutting away the darker parts of yourself, but from integrating them into a balanced, conscious identity. Every shadow was formed for a reason. Maybe you silenced parts of yourself to survive a difficult environment. Maybe you learned to hide your tears because someone called them weakness. Maybe you buried your dreams because the world made you feel unworthy. Maybe you pushed away your confidence because you were taught not to stand out. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the collection of forgotten strengths, repressed truths, and abandoned emotions that were never given space to exist. When you confront it, you do not become darker. You become more complete. You reclaim pieces of yourself that were lost to time, judgment, or fear. To rebuild yourself, you must first understand the architecture of your inner world. That involves observing your reactions in real time. Notice when something triggers you strongly, and instead of reacting automatically, pause and investigate the root. Behind every extreme reaction lies a hidden wound. Behind every insecurity lies a forgotten story. Behind every fear lies an unclaimed part of who you truly are. The shadow operates in patterns. It repeats lessons until you learn them. It brings the same types of people into your life until you understand why you allow them close. It creates similar emotional cycles until you break the unconscious script. When you see the pattern, you stop being controlled by it. Confronting the shadow also means confronting your potential. The shadow doesn't only contain your wounds, it contains your power. Many people fear their strength more than their weakness. They fear their ability, their voice, their talent, their hunger for something greater, because embracing it would force them to change their lives. So they hide their brilliance behind self-doubt. They hide their courage behind excuses. They hide their ambition behind procrastination. These too are parts of the shadow. When you confront them, you awaken a version of yourself that has been waiting silently for years. This process is not sudden. It is not loud. It is an ongoing dialogue with the inner world. It requires honesty, patience, and a willingness to see yourself clearly without running away. You begin noticing the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs you inherited from others, the identities you cling to, and the masks you wear. You start to separate who you truly are from who you believe you must be to be accepted. Rebuilding yourself demands that you break the old internal agreements you made in moments of fear or pain and replace them with truths rooted in awareness and self-understanding. Facing the shadow allows you to reclaim your emotional energy. Every hidden part of you drains power. Every suppressed feeling takes effort to keep buried. When you acknowledge them, you free the energy needed to grow, create, and rebuild. You begin to feel lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of avoidance. You feel clearer because you are no longer lying to yourself. You feel stronger because you finally understand the source of your pattern. You feel more grounded because you know what lives within you instead of operating blindly. True rebuilding begins when you see your entire self and choose to work with it rather than against it. When you stop fearing your inner world, you become capable of reshaping your outer one, dismantling you. Our old identity is a necessary part of rebuilding yourself because growth requires letting go of the version of you that was shaped by survival, fear, and past experiences. People cling to who they used to be because it feels familiar, even when that identity limits their potential. The mind holds on to routine patterns, familiar emotions, and predictable behaviors because they create a sense of safety. But transformation demands that you step beyond the boundaries of who you once were and allow the old self to dissolve. This process is uncomfortable because it challenges everything you have used to define yourself, your habits, your beliefs, your roles, your stories, and even your pain. Yet it is only by releasing these outdated layers that you create space for a stronger, more conscious version of yourself to emerge. The identity you carry today was shaped by years of conditioning. It was built by your environment, your upbringing, your experiences, and the ways you learned to cope with difficulty. Much of who you think you are is simply who you needed to be at a certain time in your life. You may have adopted traits that helped you survive an unsafe environment, suppressed parts of yourself to fit in, or created emotional walls to avoid being hurt. These adaptations were useful then, but they may now be blocking your growth. When you cling to an identity built in the past, you restrict your future. Rebuilding yourself begins with recognizing that you are not bound to the person you became out of necessity. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to outgrow versions of yourself that no longer reflect your inner truth. Letting go of an old identity starts with questioning the beliefs that formed it. Many of your beliefs about yourself are inherited rather than chosen. Perhaps you believe you are not capable because someone once dismissed your dreams. Perhaps you think you must stay small because you were taught not to draw attention. Perhaps you believe you are unworthy of love because your early experiences showed you inconsistency. These beliefs do not represent your true nature. They represent moments in time that became internalized as truth. When you challenge these beliefs, you weaken the foundation of the old identity. You begin to see that the stories you've told yourself for years were not destiny, but interpretations. Once you understand that, a new sense of possibility opens. Dismantling your identity also means letting go of roles that define you too tightly. People often build their sense of self around roles such as provider, caretaker, achiever, peacemaker, or loner. These roles may have served a purpose, but when they become rigid, they turn into cages. You may feel pressure to always be strong, even when you need support. You may feel forced to always be understanding, even when someone hurts you. You may feel obligated to always be in control, even when letting go would bring peace. Rebuilding yourself requires the courage to step out of these roles and explore new ways of being. No single role should define your entire identity. You are more complex, more layered, and more capable than the labels you have lived under. The old identity also binds itself to your memories. People replay painful memories because those experiences became part of their self-definition. You may see yourself through the lens of your failures, your heartbreaks, or your past mistakes, But holding on to those memories freezes you in time. It keeps you connected to emotions that no longer serve your growth. Letting go does not mean forgetting, it means recognizing that you are not the same person who lived those moments. You can honor your past without allowing it to control your present. Every time you revisit an old wound, a part of you reinforces the identity that grew from that wound. When you decide to release the emotional attachment to those memories, the identity tied to them begins to crumble. Letting go of your old self also requires facing the fear of the unknown. Many people cling to their outdated identity, not because it is fulfilling, but because it is predictable. They know how to be anxious, how to be avoidant, how to be angry, how to be doubtful, because these emotions are familiar. The unknown version of yourself, confident, disciplined, peaceful, powerful, feels foreign, and the mind resists stepping into unfamiliar territory. But growth only happens when you embrace the discomfort of becoming someone new. The fear you feel is not a warning, it is a sign that you are stepping beyond the limits of your old identity. When you accept uncertainty as part of transformation, you break the psychological attachment to who you were. Dismantling your identity also means letting go of the ego's need for consistency. The ego wants to believe it knows who you are, even if that self-premise is limiting. It prefers labels like, I'm not creative, I'm not disciplined, I always fail, I'm just emotional, because these labels give it a sense of stability. You are not fixed, you are not destined to remain the same. Your identity can expand, shift, and evolve as you grow. When you release the ego's attachment to a static identity, you create the freedom to redefine yourself from a place of awareness rather than habit. Letting go also requires releasing the emotional attachments that protected you. You may have used anger to shield yourself from vulnerability. You may have used perfectionism to avoid criticism. You may have used isolation to prevent abandonment. These defenses formed your old identity, but they also isolate you from the life you truly want. When you acknowledge these defenses and gently set them down, your authentic self begins to surface. You discover that vulnerability can lead to connection, that imperfection can lead to creativity, and that openness can lead to strength. Rebuilding yourself is not about rejecting your past, it is about understanding that you are no longer defined by it. You allow the old self to dissolve, not through force, but through awareness. You begin choosing new behaviors, new beliefs, and new emotional responses that align with who you want to become. Gradually, the old identity loses its grip because it no longer aligns with your current consciousness. You start living from intention rather than repetition. You make choices based on who you are becoming, not who you used to be. This is the true beginning of transformation. The moment when you finally step into a life created from self-awareness rather than inherited patterns. The unconscious mind shapes your reality more than your intentions because it operates beneath awareness, silently directing your decisions, habits, emotional responses, and the way you interpret the world. Most people believe they are guided by conscious thought, but the truth is that the unconscious has far more influence. It stores your fears, memories, beliefs, instincts, and emotional patterns. Many formed long before you were old enough to understand them. These hidden layers of your mind act like an invisible script, replaying themselves in your behavior without your permission. You may consciously want success, peace, confidence, or discipline, but if your unconscious carries fear, doubt, or unresolved pain, it will override your intentions every time. Rebuilding yourself requires learning how to bring these unconscious forces into awareness so they no longer control you. The unconscious mind is shaped by experience. Every moment of emotional intensity in your life created an imprint. If you grew up feeling unsupported, your unconscious may whisper that you cannot rely on anyone. If you experienced rejection, Your unconscious may push you to avoid connection. If you were criticized constantly, your unconscious may create a fear of failure so strong that you hesitate to try new things. These patterns blend into the background of your personality so completely that they feel like truth when they are merely learned responses. Until you examine them, you will continue to live out scripts that were written by circumstances rather than choice. Many people try to force change through willpower alone, but without addressing the unconscious roots, change becomes temporary and exhausting. Your unconscious also determines what you pay attention to. Two people can be in the same situation yet feel completely different based on what their mind filters in or out. If your unconscious is tuned to danger, you will see threats everywhere. If it is tuned to abandonment, you will pick up on the smallest signs of disconnection. If it is tuned to inadequacy, you will notice every flaw in yourself and ignore your strengths. This selective perception creates your internal reality, shaping how you experience life, regardless of the actual circumstances. You may think you are simply reacting to events, but you are reacting to the meaning your unconscious assigns to those events. To rebuild yourself, you must examine these interpretations and understand how much of your emotional world is constructed by old conditioning rather than present truth. The unconscious mind influences behavior through automatic habits. These habits act as shortcuts developed over time. You may automatically shut down when criticized, withdraw when stressed, procrastinate when overwhelmed, or chase validation when insecure. You may not even realize these patterns have roots in deeper emotional experiences. They feel like instinct, but instinct is often learned behavior embedded in the unconscious. And when you try to change your habits, you are not fighting laziness, you are fighting unconscious programming designed to protect you. Understanding this reduces self-judgment and opens the door to genuine transformation. Real change comes from rewriting the underlying emotional pattern, not forcing yourself to act differently while the old script still runs beneath the surface. Your unconscious also stores the beliefs you have about yourself. These beliefs operate like internal laws. If you unconsciously believe you are unworthy, you will subconsciously sabotage opportunities to confirm that belief. If you believe you are destined to struggle, you will gravitate towards situations that create struggle. If you believe you are not enough, no amount of external achievement will feel satisfying. These beliefs often form quietly, sometimes from offhand comments, childhood experiences, or painful moments that etch themselves into your identity. They become the lens through which you interpret the world. When rebuilding yourself, one of the most powerful steps is identifying these hidden beliefs and questioning where they came from. Once a belief is brought into awareness, its influence weakens, and a new belief can take its place. The unconscious mind also houses repressed emotions. When you suppress emotions like fear, sadness, anger, or grief, they do not disappear. They sink deeper. Stored emotions create reactions that seem sudden or irrational. A small comment might trigger intense anger because it touches an old wound. A minor disappointment might bring overwhelming sadness. These emotional reactions are messages from the unconscious, asking to be acknowledged. Rebuilding yourself requires turning toward these emotions with curiosity rather than resistance. When you allow yourself to feel and understand them, you release energy that was once trapped in suppression. This emotional release creates space for clarity, calm, and new patterns to form. Even your intentions are shaped by the unconscious. You may want something on a conscious level, but fear it unconsciously. You may desire success, but fear responsibility. You may crave love, but fear vulnerability. You may seek change, but fear uncertainty. This internal conflict keeps people stuck, repeating the same cycles despite their desire to break free. When you explore the unconscious fears behind your intentions, you can align your inner and outer motivations. True change happens only when your unconscious and conscious mind move in the same direction. Rebuilding yourself is not about forcing the unconscious to disappear. It is about making it conscious. Awareness dissolves the power of hidden patterns. When you begin to see the roots of your reactions, beliefs, and emotions, you can choose responses instead of repeating autopilot behaviors. The more you understand the hidden layers of your mind, the more control you gain over your life. Growth is born from integration, not perfection, because becoming whole has nothing to do with presenting a flawless version of yourself, and everything to do with understanding, accepting, and unifying the different parts of your inner world. People often chase perfection, believing it will bring peace, confidence, or fulfillment, but perfection is a moving target, created by fear, comparison, and unrealistic expectations. Chasing it only deepens self-criticism and disconnects you from your authentic self. Integration, on the other hand, allows you to rebuild yourself from truth rather than illusion. It requires acknowledging your contradictions, embracing your weaknesses without shame, and giving space to the emotions and instincts you once tried to suppress. When you integrate yourself, you stop fighting internally and begin living with a sense of inner unity that strengthens every area of your life. Perfection creates the illusion that you must eliminate your flaws before becoming worthy, but integration teaches that your flaws contain wisdom. The traits you judge most harshly often have a purpose. Your sensitivity may have helped you empathize deeply. Your anger may be protecting a boundary you never learned to express. Your fear may be signaling areas that need healing. Perfection demands that you erase these parts of yourself, while integration asks that you listen to them. When you stop viewing your inner complexity as a problem, you begin to see how each part of you has contributed to your survival and growth. Instead of rejecting aspects of yourself, you begin learning from them, and this shifts your mindset from self-criticism to self-understanding. True growth requires seeing yourself clearly, not selectively. Most people curate their identity by choosing the traits that make them feel strong or confident and burying the ones that make them uncomfortable. But everything you push away gains strength in the shadows. Avoided emotions become louder, ignored traits manifest as self-sabotage, suppressed fears reappear in unexpected ways. Integration means bringing these hidden parts of you into awareness so they no longer control you unconsciously. It means allowing yourself to feel anger without shame, to admit doubt without thinking you are weak, to acknowledge jealousy without believing it defines you. When all parts of you are allowed to exist, they lose their destructive power and begin working together instead of against each other. Trying to be perfect creates constant internal conflict. You judge yourself for every mistake, compare yourself to others, and measure your worth against impossible standards. This pressure fractures your sense of self. You become divided, one part striving endlessly, and another part exhausted from being pushed aside. Integration heals that divide. It allows you to balance your ambition with compassion, your discipline with rest, your independence with connection. Instead of forcing yourself into extremes, you learn to harmonize your qualities. This balance creates stability that perfection can never offer. Perfection leads to burnout and insecurity, while integration leads to resilience and self-trust. Integration also means accepting your past without letting it define you. Perfection tries to rewrite your history, pretending you were always strong, always wise, always in control. But integration acknowledges that your past mistakes, failures, and wounds shaped you. It takes the lessons without carrying the shame. It sees your past self not as something to erase, but as a necessary step in your evolution. This acceptance frees you from the heavy burden of regret. You begin to understand that everything you experienced contributed to the person you are becoming, and this understanding transforms pain into wisdom. Growth does not come from denying your past, but from integrating it into a deeper, more compassionate sense of self. Another part of integration is embracing your contradictions. Human beings are not meant to be one-dimensional. You can be confident yet insecure, disciplined yet chaotic, strong yet vulnerable. Perfection demands consistency, but integration recognizes that each of these opposing qualities has a place. Your vulnerability deepens your relationships, your insecurity pushes you to grow, your discipline builds your future. Your chaos fuels creativity. When you stop labeling parts of yourself as good or bad, and instead see how they function together, you gain a richer understanding of who you are. This inner harmony becomes the foundation for emotional maturity. Integration also fosters authentic confidence. Perfection creates fragile confidence that depends on external validation or flawless performance. One mistake can break it, but integrated confidence is rooted in acceptance. You trust yourself not because you are perfect, but because you know who you are. You understand your strengths, acknowledge your limitations, and are not threatened by them. This authenticity is powerful. It allows you to move through life without pretending, without masks, and without fear of being exposed. When you are no longer at war with yourself, you become grounded and unshakable. Finally, integration empowers you to grow sustainably. Perfection relies on force, pressure, and unrealistic expectations. Integration relies on awareness, compassion, and alignment. Growth becomes a natural outcome of knowing yourself deeply. You evolve not by rejecting parts of yourself, but by bringing all parts of you into unity. You learn to act from your whole being rather than from fragmented impulses. This creates long-lasting transformation because it is built on truth. When you integrate who you are, every step forward becomes stable, conscious, and aligned with your genuine nature. Rebuilding yourself is a lifelong dialogue with your inner world, because who you are is not fixed, but constantly evolving through experiences, realizations, and the ongoing relationship you have with your own mind. Most people believe self-improvement is a one-time event, something achieved by reading a book, adopting a new routine, or having a moment of inspiration. But transformation does not happen in a single breakthrough. It unfolds over years, driven by continuous self-observation, reflection, and the willingness to adjust as you grow. Your inner world is not static. Your thoughts shift, your emotions change, your values deepen, and your understanding of yourself expands. Every stage of life reveals new layers of your psyche, and rebuilding yourself requires staying present with these shifts, instead of clinging to outdated versions of who you once were. Your inner world is always communicating with you. It expresses itself through your emotions, your reactions, your desires, and the patterns you notice repeating in your life. When you feel tension in a certain situation, your mind is signaling something unresolved. When you feel drawn to a new path, your inner voice is trying to guide you. When you feel resistance, it often points to fear or a belief that no longer fits who you are becoming. Many people ignore these signals because the external world demands their attention. They focus on work, relationships, responsibilities, and distractions, while their inner world becomes buried under layers of noise. But ignoring those inner signals leads to confusion, burnout, and emotional disconnection. Rebuilding yourself requires the opposite, listening closely to what your inner world is trying to reveal. This dialogue deepens through self-awareness. The more you observe your thoughts and emotions without judging them, the more clearly you understand your internal patterns. Awareness helps you recognize when old wounds influence your behavior, or when you are acting out of habit rather than intention. It allows you to see how your mind responds to stress, how your body reacts to conflict, and what triggers your insecurities. With awareness, you begin to notice subtle shifts, moments when you feel a pull toward growth or a push from fear. These small inner movements matter because they shape the direction of your life. Being in conversation with yourself means paying attention to these movements and responding to them consciously rather than automatically. Rebuilding yourself also requires patience because inner growth does not follow a straight line. You may evolve in one area while feeling stuck in another. You may feel deeply awakened one week and discouraged the next. This fluctuation is not failure, it is natural. The inner world has seasons. There are times of clarity and times of confusion, periods of expansion and periods of rest, moments when you feel strong and moments when you need to retreat. A lifelong dialogue means learning to work with these seasons instead of resisting them. It means recognizing that growth sometimes happens quietly, beneath the surface, in ways you might not notice until much later. One of the most important aspects of this inner conversation is honesty. You cannot rebuild yourself while lying to yourself. You must be willing to admit when you feel insecure, when you are avoiding something, when you are hurting, when you are wrong, and when you have outgrown something that once mattered to you. Honesty opens the door to transformation. It allows you to confront uncomfortable truths and make conscious choices instead of using denial or distraction to avoid facing them. This honesty is not harsh, it is compassionate. You tell yourself the truth because you want to evolve, not because you want to punish yourself. Another part of this ongoing dialogue is curiosity. Instead of judging your emotions, you begin to ask questions. Why did that situation trigger me so strongly? What is this anxiety trying to protect me from? What is behind this desire for change? What part of me is asking to be healed? Curiosity turns challenges into opportunities for insight. It helps you explore the layers beneath your reactions and uncover the deeper meaning behind your experiences. When you approach yourself with curiosity rather than criticism, you create space for growth that feels natural rather than forced. Rebuilding yourself also means staying connected to your intuition. Intuition is the voice of your deeper self, the part of you that senses what is right long before your logical mind can explain it. It nudges you toward people who align with you, warns you when something feels wrong, and guides you toward paths that support your evolution. Many people silence their intuition because it challenges their comfort zone or contradicts what others expect from them. But intuition is a crucial part of your inner dialogue. Listening to it strengthens your relationship with yourself and helps you make decisions that reflect your authentic path. As you continue this lifelong conversation, you learn to embrace change instead of resisting it. The person you are today is not the final version of you. Your beliefs will shift, your values will refine, your strengths will evolve, and your desires will grow. Rebuilding yourself requires allowing these changes to happen instead of fighting to stay the same. When you engage with your inner world consistently, you become adaptable, resilient, and aligned with your true direction. You stop fearing evolution because you understand it is a natural part of being alive. A lifelong dialogue with your inner world is not about reaching perfection, but about staying connected to who you are beneath the noise, the roles, and the expectations. It is about growing in truth, rebuilding yourself from the inside out, and continuously shaping your identity based on self-awareness and inner wisdom. Here is a strong emotional conclusion for: in the end, rebuilding yourself is not a single moment, a single breakthrough, or a single decision. It is a constant returning to your own truth. It is the willingness to look inward when the world tries to pull you outward. It is the courage to let your old identity fall apart so a more authentic one can rise. You rebuild yourself every time you choose awareness over avoidance, growth over comfort, responsibility over excuses, and honesty over illusion. And as you continue this journey, you will discover that the person you are becoming has been waiting for you all along. Not a perfect version, not a fearless version, but a whole version. Stronger, wiser, more grounded, and more conscious than ever before. So as you walk forward from here, carry this with you. You are not defined by your past fragments, but by your ability to shape your future self. You are not broken, you are unfolding. And every step you take toward understanding yourself is a step toward transforming your entire life. Good luck on your journey of rebuilding. May your strength deepen, your clarity sharpen, and your spirit rise higher than ever before. Thank you for listening.